Hey everyone, Gill here. Post-match, Felix Auger-Aliassime versus Andy Murray, US Open 2020 second round. If you're not looking for spoilers, click off the video in 3, 2, 1. All right. This was an easy walk in the park win for FAA 6-2, 6-3, 6-4. Now, I think the big question mark coming in was what kind of level were we going to get from Andy Murray after a 4-hour, 36-minute first round match with Yoshi Nishioka in the first round. Andy has always kind of communicated that it's not about playing one physical match, it's the recovery that he's kind of struggled with, and that's the part that has always concerned him. And in this match, Andy was not even close to 100% physically. I kind of said like 67% physically, which is really not going to cut it against a player of Felix Auger-Aliassime's caliber. But on top of that, I think that the things that FAA does explicitly exploits, which is a bit of a tongue twister. I should say it specifically exploits some of the areas that Andy has struggled with most glaringly post hip surgery. Now, let me just say this is as clean a match as you'll see Felix play, and he was immaculate in this match. The firepower coming from the serve and the forehand alone was insane. And then you look at his frame and how he moves around the court, and you are reminded why the hype is real when it comes to Felix Auger-Aliassime. Even if he's not putting things together, not winning matches, if he's double faulting and making way too many errors to win, it's these kinds of performances that are a reminder of why everyone who knows anything knows that the ceiling is so high for this 20-year-old. If you look at the match stats, it gives you a pretty good idea of how clean he played. 24 aces for FAA. I don't have the winners to unforced, but a lot to a little for the Canadian. Yeah, let me talk about some of the things that Felix did that really bothered Andy's movement, which again, it wasn't 100% coming into the match, but in this case, it was just exacerbated. So one is, again, the return. Now, Felix has had a good first serve forever now. It's been the second serve, which has been a problem. He's had consistently one of the highest double fault rates on tour. Right now in 2020, I checked this morning, or actually last night, and in 2020, has the sixth highest double fault rate on tour, according to Tennis Abstract data, which is bad, but actually not as bad as it's been in the past. I think last year he was, I want to say third. It was him, Zverev, and Benoit Paire kind of up there. I do think that Felix has made an adjustment on his second serve, and I think it's the toss. I think he's putting his toss further behind his head, which is actually exactly what I was looking for. Now, I want to confirm that with video, and maybe I'll revisit that in a future video. But the first serve has always been great. And I got to say, if there's one area where I don't think I've seen Andy get anywhere near the level where he once was before his injury and his subsequent surgery, it's on the return of serve. You don't really see him making the agile returns that we became so accustomed to. And, you know, there were times where I almost felt like Murray might be a tougher player to ace than Djokovic. It was always close between them. But Murray, nobody covered the service box better than Murray. And he's just not doing that anymore. So when he comes up against a big server like Felix, he can now FAA can produce service winners and blow aces by Andy Murray. It used to be a lot harder to do that. If you look at the stats when Murray played Milos Raonic last week, Raonic won 88% of his first serve points. They had played, I want to say 12. There were 12 prior meetings between Murray and Raonic. Raonic had never won that high a number of first serve points. Raonic was under 80% in a lot of those matches. And when he was over 80%, I believe he never was higher than 84. He was all the way up to 88 last week. So the first serve return hasn't looked the same for Andy. And that shouldn't really be surprising. It takes a tremendous amount of mobility in the hip, spring from the legs, which I believe maybe he still has that part. But really, it takes just a lot of upper body flexibility to explode into stretch returns. That's one area where I feel that Andy is not there yet. So Felix takes advantage of that with his big first serve. The second area that Felix takes advantage of, Andy's top-end speed, his high-end speed, I think it's still pretty good. It's the changing direction and the quick movements, which look still a bit slow. And FAA does two things. He takes the ball early, and he goes behind Andy. He did those two things really, really well in this match. Deuce side, biggest points. He'd go with the serve out wide, and then the forehand back that direction, behind Andy, back to his forehand side. Followed it up behind the wide serve on the deuce side. Now, if he didn't take the ball early, then going behind Murray wouldn't be effective. Because once you get your weight centered, the whole advantage of hitting behind someone is completely neutralized. Once the weight is centered, you have no advantage in hitting behind your opponent. But when your opponent is still recovering to the middle of the court, that means their weight is still going one way. That's when you get the advantage from hitting it the other way. And that change of direction, that stopping on a dime and going the other way, is where I feel that Murray is slow right now. To my eyes, that's where he's slow. I don't think he's slow when he gets in position, gets a good, solid, balanced split step, and then gets to go run after a ball. It's been the quick changes of direction, stopping on a dime, going back the other way when his momentum is going the other way. That's where Andy's been slow. Felix taking the ball early is huge because he doesn't let Murray recover, and that's where he can go behind Andy, which he did with really great success. We all know that the Felix forehand can be on and it can be off, and it was just on tonight. And when it's on, it's scary. It's such a great shot when it's on. So much spin, so much whip into the court. Really, really a great offensive weapon. Ultimately, where Felix is at a deficit where he should be at a deficit in this matchup is consistency. And I think Andy just wasn't playing well enough physically that Andy wasn't much more consistent than Felix was. Felix was probably more consistent. Right then and there, you know how the match is going. FAA has more power, bigger serve, bigger forehand. So if Andy's not the more consistent player and the defense isn't what it used to be, you know it's going to be one-way traffic, which it was. One more tactical point. Andy's got the slice action on his second serve. Makes it more difficult for him to get the ball to the righty backhand because the ball is spinning towards the forehand. And Felix was really having his way on his forehand return off the Murray second serve. He was clobbering it. In the second set, Andy's first serve percentage was higher, so it was kind of hidden. But in the first set and the third set, especially, it was a big problem for Andy was the amount of slice that was on the second serve. It's really nothing new. Murray's had that issue for his whole career. I just want to say Felix took advantage of it. Felix capitalized on it. His forehand was so on point that Andy really needed to get it to the backhand on the second serve, and he couldn't really get it to the backhand. What I was saying about Felix was that a player like Andy just isn't really going to test Felix's weak points, which is his defense and his return at this juncture and his consistency. Andy should be able to test his consistency, but I'll be much more interested to see how Felix fares against an opponent this week that can put him in a defensive position. Because when Felix is on his front foot, when he gets to play attacking tennis, the match is very much in his wheelhouse and on his racket. Doesn't mean he can't have a bad match and make a ton of unforced errors, but the defense is still where Felix needs to develop, because as good a mover as he is, he's still not a very good defender, and sometimes he doesn't put enough serves in play, and sometimes he's not patient enough. It's all shot selection, it's all intention, but I'll tell you what, if his second serve is fixed, he's going to be an overwhelming player to play from an offensive standpoint. He is going to be really, really difficult to play. With the first serve he has, if he can rely on his second serve and hit big forehands and try to play within himself on the backhand, which is a shot that's heavy, he just sometimes it's kind of wild and it sprays. He can be really, really great. But my read on the match was Andy didn't have what he needed to have physically. So defensively, he wasn't there. The consistency wasn't there. But the firepower from Felix was really, really impressive. So straightforward match. But I hope I shed some light on the areas where Andy looks like he's lagging behind. Because in a lot of areas, he's looked quite good. But that's the area where Andy's lagging behind. Those specific areas. Return of serve. Quick changes of direction. And Felix plays the winner of Moutet and Evans. I think he's probably hoping Moutet wins. If Felix plays Evans, that's going to be a really good test and a really good match. Hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you next time.